Coming up on this episode of the IoT Inc. Business Show.
Smart products are roughly 10 times the cost of dumb or regular products. That's a problem. But it's for good reason, though. To make these products smart requires a lot of tech and infrastructure that needs to be paid for somehow. This will only be solved by new business models, and not the type of business models that we're used to in enterprise IoT. In this episode of the IoT Business Show, I discuss how trading privacy for value may be the only solution.
All this and more on this episode of the IoT Inc. Business Show. The people, the business, and the technology of the next generation internet. This is the IoT Inc. Business Show. And now, here's your host, Bruce Sinclair.
Hello and welcome to the IoT Inc. Business Show. This show is for business leaders and managers employing the Internet of Things for their business or the business of their customers. I'm your host, Bruce Sinclair, and I interview the industry's leading authorities to find out how they use IoT to improve business and create value. If you like this show, subscribe to it on iTunes and go to iotinc.com to check out my complimentary articles, videos, meetups, and webinars.
If you're listening to this show near the release date, I'd like to let you know that I'm putting on my 2-day workshop online for the very first time. The workshop consists of 2 courses. The first course is an overview of IoT tech and IoT business. And the second course gets into planning your business and your product lines, so your IoT business plan and requirements document. It'll be presented live in 4 4-hour blocks over June 20th to 23rd, and it'll also include the slides and a video of the whole thing. This has been a very popular workshop, but to date I've only been presenting it live. So if you're interested, take a look at www.iotinc.com/training, and you'll be able to find out more information and also read the 80 plus reviews I have from my students. I'd appreciate your support on this, as this is one of the ways that I finance this podcast. Introducing the Samsung Family Hub Refrigerator. No dollars down, no dollars per month. In fact, no dollars at all. There's no price, but there is a cost, and that cost is your privacy. Nothing's for free. The category of products that I'm going to talk about today are called smart products. Now, I know I've stated in the past that I don't like this term. I like IoT products, but we're going to roll with it for this podcast because that's the term that is commonly used here. These smart products, they connect up to the internet, and they do so to provide innovative features, but they have some challenges in front of them. Let's start with this Family Hub refrigerator from Samsung. So, the features. It's Wi-Fi enabled. It has a touchscreen. It has 3 built-in cameras that take photos of your food every time the door closes. And what that means, though, is that you can be anywhere and you can see what's inside your fridge. It has schedules for the family. It plays music. And it allows you to do grocery shopping online. That sounds all pretty good. Now, features it could include in the future is if it does recognize the food, it could use analytics to actually recommend recipes for you. That sounds pretty good. So now let's look at 2 of the more popular smart products being sold today, the Nest Thermostat and the August Lock. The Nest Thermostat, well, it allows you to remotely control it when you're not there. It learns your temperature schedule. It even knows when you're not at home, so it can go in away mode. And it'll send alerts if it's too hot. Cat, maybe your dog might be getting too hot or too cold, a little too cold for the pipes. It'll actually send alerts for you. Now that sounds pretty good, right? The price? $249. Does it still sound as good? Let's talk about the August Lock now. The August lock has virtual keys. Now this is done with the mobile phone, so you can give out keys to different family members. In fact, even the strangers if you're doing something like an Airbnb. It allows you to have an auto lock or an unlock feature, which is great. So when you come close to it, it'll unlock. Of course, you have your mobile phone with you. And when you go away from it, whether you're inside or outside of it, it'll lock automatically. And it'll also track who comes in and out of the house. Good information to have, and allows you to review it. The price? $249. So does that sound good now? The problem that smart products face is their cost, is their price. They're definitely better products, but are they worth the extra money? When you look at the pricing, they're around 10 times the cost of the regular version. A thermostat? Yeah, you can get a pretty good thermostat, not a smart thermostat, but a pretty good thermostat for $25 easily, $24.99. A deadbolt? You can get a pretty good deadbolt for around $25 or $24 as well. So if these products, at least in my view, and I'm a pretty big IoT zealot, but when I look at these products, I see them, at least today, at those prices as being more of a nice to have than a must have. Now, I'm not disparaging their pricing because they have costs, and they have costs that are on the back end that don't need to be incurred by the regular thermostat and the regular lock. So let's look at each of these high-level features and talk a little bit about the technology behind them. Starting with the Nest thermostat. So it learns your temperature schedule. What's happening here is that there's going to be some analytics. The sensors are going to send the information to the cloud. So the infrastructure you need so far is going to be the local device, which is the Nest thermostat. It's going to do your uphaul. Your uplink is going to be through your Wi-Fi, and then it's going to go to the product cloud. In the product cloud, it's going to connect up to your analytics, and the analytics is going to take the sensing data, and it's going to correlate the time to the temperature, and it's going to work out a map. It's going to work out a model. Away from home mode. Similar thing, looking at the sensors and seeing when there isn't any activity, or maybe recognizing pet activity and not confusing it for human activity. But at some point, again, it's building a model, refining that model, and the app will eventually recognize by interrogating that model after it's been built up by the analytics. By interrogating that model, it's going to realize that you're not at home. And what it's going to do is then actuate the product, the end node being the Nest thermostat, and then tell it to turn the temperature down. Remote control. Now we start incorporating the need for a mobile app. So now we've got a mobile app. It's going to connect up to the same product cloud. That product cloud, as we were talking about earlier, is going to connect up to the analytics, and it's going to connect up to a rules engine that's going to articulate or actuate, I should say, the end node being the thermostat. Send alerts when it's too hot and too cold. Similarly, again, this is an analytics play, understanding the boundaries, and this is a very common alert, let's say anomaly detection when something is outside of a range or outside of an equation of a range, or equations of ranges, I should say. Again, same infrastructure. We're talking about model building, so we're talking about analytics here, and then we're talking about a way to alert the owner, and the owner alert will happen. Well, it could happen a number of different ways, including the mobile phone. And so again, there needs to be the path that goes back to the mobile phone. So for the Nest thermostat, we have a lot of analytics happening, and we have some actuation, and we have the mobile app that's going to have to be developed that will go on the owner's phone. Now, the August lock is a slightly different play, and here it's more of a database play, at least for now. So going through the features, the virtual keys, you're going to need a database to store them. You're going to need a way to create them, and you're going to need a way to provision them onto the different users' phones. So this can be family members, this could be potentially friends, and as I said earlier, this could be for a stranger. It could be in an Airbnb situation where you want to provide keys to your home to someone from someone that you don't even know and you don't even want to know. You don't necessarily even want to meet. So in the past, when you do Airbnb, like I have last time we were in Paris, we came in a little bit late on our flight, and the owner of the flat had to meet us at the door. And it was nice to meet them. I think I don't know if it was so nice for them to meet us, but there is that. I think it's a good feature. It's a very good feature to be able to provide these keys from a distance. Now, the technology involved here is the database, and we're going to need a mobile provisioning system as well to be able to send the keys out. So it's going to have to be able to have an app on the mobile phone that will be able to accept the keys. The back end again is a database, and there'll be rules and security that'll be managed from the application, the app, that's going to determine what keys are sent to who. The auto lock and unlock, this is going to be simply using, again, it's an extension of the mobile app that's on your phone. It's going to be using the GPS information, and using that GPS information along with some geofencing information that you're going to need to input, or maybe they have some standards. It's going to it's a very simple type of analytics, but it's going to be making some comparisons based on your GPS location and a distance from a particular location, that being the location of your lock. So we have here, again, we're going to have a mobile app, we're going to have our product cloud, and we're going to have the database that has to store this information. Track who comes in and out. Again, this is more of a database type application. We are simply getting the information from the phone, going up to the product cloud, and storing it in a database. Obviously that database needs to be thought through, but it's relatively simple. So there's a bit of technology behind both these products. This technology is not necessarily over the top, but where it gets challenging is when you start talking about scale. Think about lots of users. Think about having to deal with users around the world. Think about the distribution of your data centers. And then think about the security to be able to secure all these transactions. So scale starts adding a lot of costs as well. Developing the technology, there's a cost there. Maintaining the technology or operating the technology is where a big second cost will lie. Lots of expenses here, right? And I guess that tells you why the cost is around 10x the cost for a similarly dumb or regular version of the product. So what's the solution here? I think there's no other solution than to come up with a different business model. Now, if we go through the business models at the high level anyway, we've got the product transaction business model, and this is the one that consumers really like today. It's what they're used to buying thermostats and locks with. Going up to the service-based business model, I guess I could see you might want to rent your thermostat, I suppose, maybe rent your lock. The problem is, though, that consumers don't really think that way. I mean, they're used to buying thermostats and locks in a particular way, forever. And so changing those habits are really challenging. Now let's look at outcome-based business models. Outcome-based business models are generally going to be either saving money, or they're going to be making money for the enterprise, or they're going to be doing both. It's a little more challenging again in the home, a little more challenging with consumers, although there is still this desire to save money, obviously, but it's not a business model. The home is not really working on the same type of business model as an enterprise, and therefore, while enterprises may be a little bit more open to adopting these different business models because there's a direct correlation between the profitability of the enterprise and the business model, I think you could argue pretty convincingly that the home doesn't necessarily think of things in the same way, and so an outcome-based business model maybe isn't as interesting. If you think about Nest, though, there could be an outcome-based business model. One of the things that they promote on their website is that it will save you a certain amount of percentage per month, and it works out that you can pay the device back in 2 years. So a business model that could potentially work, an outcome-based business model that could potentially work, could be that you don't pay anything for it, or you pay a certain amount of how much money it saves you, I should say. Again, I think it's a little bit of a stretch for the consumer to be thinking in these ways, and I think that's why you see both Nest and August using the tried and true business models of a one-time sale. So I think it's not so much in changing the business model, but maybe adding another business model to it. And when we get down to adding another business model to it, if we start thinking about how value is created in IoT by making the product better, by servicing the product better, by operating the product better, and by selling new products. And the new products that here are going to be information products. Information is really the new currency. Now, we get some hints on this. Now, in looking at what information that each of these products actually capture and save. And you can find this information by reading their privacy statements or reading their privacy policies, both of which are available on their websites. Now, going through the Nest privacy policy at a very high level, what they collect is setup information that you provide. They collect environmental data from their sensors. Direct adjustments to the device, including temperature or settings, heating and cooling and usage information, and technical information from the device. So that's pretty rich. It's a pretty rich data set. And in fact, Nest already does sell this information not to any nefarious bodies, but to utilities. The utility business model, and that is the organization that sells you their electricity, they buy wholesale electricity. And the cost that they buy that wholesale electricity has a big factor on their bottom line. If you buy too much wholesale electricity, then it goes wasted. If you don't buy enough wholesale electricity in advance, and then you need more electricity, then you need to buy electricity at a higher price. So getting that balance of being able to predict how much electricity they need to buy from their suppliers is really valuable. And this is information that Nest does, or Google does, sell. Now, looking at the price point at $249, I'm not sure if they pass it on to the user or not. Maybe some listener of this show knows this. Maybe they do, because there is a lot of technology behind Nest, and specifically in the analytics, but it doesn't seem like they do from the cost. So maybe this is just strictly for profitability. Now, looking at the August lock, the information they collect is, well, they explicitly say PII, so personally identifiable information to administer the service. Obviously, you need support. They need to be able to identify you. So they've got pretty good information of where you live, your GPS potentially, your location, your name, pictures of you, because they actually do that for when they provide keys, also for their database of who goes in and out of the house. So all this information is captured. Also, information is captured that's related to the use of the service, and including the GPS information. So remember, you're carrying around this mobile app. And this mobile app is tracking your GPS information at some frequency because it needs to know whether you are near your lock or not. Now, August, if you listen to the last podcast with Nate, you can see they're still working through this. But some of the hints that they talked about was customer acquisition costs, being able to lower the customer acquisition cost to other service providers, let's say insurance, or product providers that want to get at the customer, and that is the homeowner. So they are still trying to sort out what information they can sell, and they kind of leave themselves open, and it's a smart way, and I would do the same thing, because if you look at their privacy statement, there's a note in there, and it says, or their privacy policy, and it says, this privacy policy may be updated from time to time. So it gives them the right to actually change the privacy policy, and what that means, it gives them the right, once they come up with a business model that works, it gives them the right to change it. Now, don't get me wrong, because I don't necessarily think selling data is bad. As long as you get something back in return, there has to be something of value that you get in return. So I have horrible directions. A sense of direction, I should say. I get lost all the time when I'm driving. Not only when I'm in new cities, but I get lost even within my small town of, I think there's like 90,000 people here, 80,000 people here. So when I'm in a rush, even if I'm going somewhere that I kind of know more or less where it is, I'll still put it in my GPS. So what that means is that Google, because I like Google Maps personally, they know where I live, they know who I visit, they know where I shop, they know pretty much everything about where I go. And that's okay. And the reason it's okay because there's an explicit trade of value. In this case, I'm trading my personal information, so my privacy, for a really, really good app that prevents me from getting lost. So that's what's really important here, I think, is that if you are going to be selling this information, that in return, you need to be giving them, and them being the consumer in this particular situation, you need to be giving the consumer something in return. Now, this is just the beginning. As we get more and more smart products entering the home, it's going to be real important that consumers understand, what they're trading, or what information they're trading away. So what information is being collected? Where is that information? Where is that data being stored? For how long is that data being stored? How is that data deleted when it is deleted? And most importantly, there has to be this concept of a value trade. An exchange of privacy for value. So in my view, this is the big challenge for consumer IoT products. It's not a technology one, although there's a lot of technology involved. It really is a business one, and that is, what is the business model? And again, I think the business model has to be an extension of the business model or an additional business model, as opposed to getting a little fancier as we can do in the enterprise, just because of who we're selling to. So now let's go back. Let's go back to the Samsung showroom. Now we're walking up to this beautiful family hub refrigerator with its large 1 foot by 3 foot, something like that, screen on it. And think about it. Are you willing to pay dollars, or are you willing to pay data to get that baby? Okay, well, that was episode 55. A multiple 11, so it's always a good number. To get an analysis of this episode, go to the show analysis notes. They can all be found at iot-inc.com/podcasts. Now I could use your help. And I've said this before, if you're a regular listener and you enjoy these podcasts, you can support this show in a couple different ways. The first way is to refer to a friend or a colleague. And the second way is to leave a review. And there's 2 ways to leave reviews. You have to be in the iTunes app, but you can leave a star review, which is, I guess, more of a rating, in seconds. And if you write up a review, I would really appreciate it. I read every one of them. I'm up to 46 now. I guess that seems like kind of a small number. I don't know. But for those of you that recently left a review, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm your host, Bruce Sinclair. Thank you for listening. Until next time, may your path to IoT business be a profitable one.
You have been listening to the IoT Inc. Business Show.